Thank you for being here for our family. I am Nina. I am the third child of Ronnie and Pinky. I am the third grandchild. And I'm also Tita Nini's backup. Earlier today, when she was preparing her speech, she was getting very nervous and she was worried that she was going to be very emotional. And one of the things I believe I'm famous for in my family is that I looked like Tita Nini when she was young. And that's my claim to fame, and I know Tita Nini has a lot of friends here today, so you can confirm with me or deny that I looked exactly like her when she was younger. So naturally, she asked me to be her backup today. And I'm very happy, Tita Nini, you got through your speech. And I had something to say about Grandma, which I wanted to go ahead and share anyway. I read a quote today that said, "The strength of a woman is not measured by the impact that all her hardships in life have had on her, but the strength of a woman is measured by the extent of her refusal to allow those hardships to dictate her and who she becomes." So today, I'd like to remember and celebrate Grandma for the strong woman she was. When I was in elementary school, just like all the other Filipino kids, I had to take piano lessons, whether or not I wanted to. And when I started, I wasn't sure if I was going to like it or not. And I remember I took piano lessons in elementary school with a teacher that Grandma knew. And one of the first times coming from the lesson, I go to Grandma's house and I said, "Grandma, there's this piece that I have to play." And unfortunately, I did not inherit Grandma's talent of sight reading. And so I could not read what was on the page. And Grandma said, "Well, let me play it for you." And so she sat down on her piano and she played it. And I was so amazed by how beautifully Grandma played, and I wanted to play just like her. But what was I going to do? I was telling Grandma, "Grandma, how can I do this? I can't even read it." And she said, "You sit down. I will play it for you again." And she did. And I realized that I could just follow her. I could just copy her fingers and I could just listen. And I could get through the lessons that way. And so she found a solution for me and she said, "You come here every week and I will play for you," which she did. And she was right. I made it through piano lessons all the way through the end of elementary school. I actually even got a partial scholarship in Marino. And I know that I owe some of that to Grandma, not just my work, but just her tutelage and just her patience. Because I didn't always get it, but she was always willing to sit there with me and play it for me. Grandma was the woman who always found a solution for everything. And I could always see that in her strength, her troubleshooting. When I was in fourth year high school, we moved to the States. So I wasn't able to see Grandma as often, but then she would come to the States. And during one of her visits when I was in college, it coincided with my older sister asking me to dance with her in a show that she was in. And she needed backup, as a backup. And so she asked me to dance with her. And Grandma happened to be visiting, and I was telling Grandma, "Ate Wendy asked me to dance with her. But I'm not a dancer. I did not inherit Tita Nini's, my mom's with Tita Sally's or Tita Margie's gift of dancing." And Grandma said, "Kaya mo yan, just do it." And so I did. And Grandma was there at the show. She happened to be there during the performance and she watched the show. And I just remember being on stage, feeling a little silly, but doing it anyway, looking at Grandma in the audience. And then after the show, I went to her and I said,
I did it.
"How was it, Grandma?" And she looked at me and she was silent for a moment, and in her serious expression, she said, "Marunong ka palang sumayaw." Which, of course, that was all I needed to hear. And I knew that I had gotten through it and I did the right thing. Later on, after I was in college, my two older sisters got married, and I was the oldest one in the house. I was over 21, and so it just happened that I was the only one in the household who did not get a green card, along with my other siblings. And that became my thing when we were in the States. Everybody else would stay in the country. And I was on a student visa, and then later on, I had a work visa, and then I had another work visa, and at a certain point, I was like, out of options before they kicked me out of this country. And I remember talking to Grandma about it all the time, and I was stressing about it because she knew how much, it was troubling me. And then close to the end, when I just felt like, I don't know what I'm going to do, I had a conversation with Grandma, and Grandma will always find a way. And in one of our last conversations about that, she said, "Don't worry, you can always marry your Tito Mike in Florida. He's an American citizen and he's single." Thankfully, I did not have to do that. But it was so clear to Grandma what I had to do. I found my husband, who is here today, and the rest is history. But I always thought that was so funny that no matter what, whenever I went to Grandma with a problem, she always had a solution.
Nice.
Even to this day, my husband talks to my girls. We have 2 daughters, to our girls, about Grandma. And he talks to them, and I talk to them about the Alisanco strength, the Mendoza strength. So every time I've gone through anything, or when my kids go through anything, my husband always reminds me, and my kids, my girls, you're a Mendoza, you're an Alisanco. You can get through anything. And that has really helped me throughout my life. I know that a lot has been said about Grandma and her harsh criticisms. And it's true that Grandma expected a lot of others. And I think that's because Grandma expected a lot of herself. I see Grandma's strength wherever I turn. It's in Tita Nini, Tita Sally, Tita Margie. I see it in my sister, Rona, my other sisters, and especially in my mom. Grandma is finally reunited with Papa in heaven, and we'll always miss her. But she leaves behind her indelible strength, which is in all of us. So I believe she's always going to be with us because of that. Grandma, I love you, and I'm happy that you're grandpa in heaven.